spectators, technicians, and performance artists are embarking on a never-before-attempted feat, a 9-person human mobile. Each person will be suspended from one of the large steel beams, but there is a catch, a sharp catch. These men and women are going to be anchored to the mobile by stainless steel hooks that pass through their skin. Only their skin will support them. Unbelievable? Believe it. Stay with us when members of the Suspension Club take to the air. Later on, Ripley's Believe It or Not. Next, what could be worse than thousands of live maggots eating at your flesh? Not giving these miracle creatures a chance to save your life.
Maggots have a number of beneficial effects on wound healing.
Also, Rose Siggins lives a full life with only half a body. Now she faces her greatest challenge, trying to have a baby.
And will the child have enough room to grow inside me?
The technology of medicine has managed to make miracles an everyday occurrence. But technology can only go so far. One of the most revolutionary forms of medical care today has nothing at all to do with science, but it has everything to do with one of the most despised creatures on earth.
Tom Hancock is faced with an agonizing decision. What began as a small infection in his foot now threatens his life. He's had every treatment modern medicine has to offer, but they've all failed, forcing him to make one final choice: amputate his entire foot or let starving fly larvae feast on his flesh. You're looking at the smallest surgeons on Earth. Tiny creatures that can burrow their way into places even the finest scalpel can't reach. This is maggot therapy.
Maggots have a number of beneficial effects on wound healing. Their primary and most important action is actually cleaning the wound, removing all the dead tissue.
Tom Hancock, a patient at the Doncaster Royal Infirmary in England, has suffered from type 2 diabetes for years, and his disease has taken a hideous toll.
This black mess on my foot, like gangrene. I can't imagine maggots doing any good at all.
Ever since World War I, the British medical community has embraced the use of fly larvae as an alternative to amputation. Today, the maggots are bred in a special lab specifically for medical use. Sue Johnson, a clinical nurse specialist in wound care, will perform the maggot procedure on Tom's foot.
Okay, we'll get started then.
We'll remind you of the obvious. This is not for the squeamish.
Oh my God.
I think you'll see a big improvement when we've had the maggots on. It'll clean all this area up. But probably these 2 toes, we'll lose those 2. We'll try and keep the 3rd one for you.
Now Nurse Johnson pours the 100 or so maggots onto the sterile netting and places it right on top of Tom's open wound. If they can't save his foot, it will have to be amputated. There's one more catch. If not removed in 72 hours, the maggots will turn into flies. For Tom, the wait seems endless. Can these maggots save his foot? Finally, after 3 days, it's time to see how well the therapy worked.
Right, Tom.
Yes?
What I'm going to do now is just take these bandages off.
Yes.
And then we'll see what the maggots have actually done.
The maggots have consumed a large amount of the dead tissue. They have also eaten the bacteria along with it, increasing their size 5 times. It sounds agonizing, but Tom says it was painless.
I felt them crawling and creeping.
Look, they're actually burying right down underneath. So it might take us a little while.
The most important step, every maggot must be removed before closing the wound.
Clean this second toe up a little bit. They certainly had a good feed, haven't they?
Yes.
Fattened up quite a bit.
Yeah.
The maggot therapy has worked. Nature's microsurgeons have accomplished something a scalpel couldn't. Tom's foot was saved. And with a little assist from Nurse Johnson, he's finally on his way home.
Rose Siggins is a 26-year-old woman who seems to have everything. A loving husband, a steady job, a place in her community. But there was something missing in Rose's life. And no, it's probably not what you think.
Rose Siggins sparkles for the camera with the poise of a supermodel. But she says she's just as ordinary as you or me, except for the fact that she has no legs.
To explain to people of my condition, usually what I tell them is the Barbie doll analogy. And you take the Barbie doll and you just pop the legs off the Barbie doll, and what remains of the body is me, just without the legs.
Rose Siggins was born with multiple birth defects known as sacral agenesis. She has no legs, no pelvis, and no spine below her ribcage.
I was never really allowed to use the word no or I can't. If I sat there and I said, I can't do this, why can't you? You know, just do it. I mean, if I couldn't keep up with the kids that were running down the block, my dad would be like, well, hey, why don't you get on a skateboard or something? And it was just their support and them building up my confidence that made me the person that I am today.
Rose's story is also a love story that begins with how she met Dave, her husband, long after they'd first started talking to one another.
I used to work in an automotive repair shop, and he used to work at an Autoport store. And of course, we ordered our parts through him. So we just talked on the phone. We'd been talking on the phone for at least 4 or 5 months before we actually met. One day, we forgot to get some parts from him, so I volunteered, I'll go down, I'll get them.
So Rose hopped on her skateboard and headed down to where Dave worked.
Well, the first thing was I thought that was the neatest way in the world for her to get around and overcome her difference instead of using a wheelchair or really having much assistance.
It was kind of neat, you know, I thought he was kind of cute. We went back to the shop, and eventually we just became friends and had went out a few times.
Once you know Rose, the best thing about her is she is no different than anybody else. You see her like she has a set of legs because she gets around, does things that you and I would do.
When I was younger, it really bothered me when someone would come up and ask, why don't you have any legs? Why are you like that? And I had slightly a bad attitude about it. But as I've grown up, I've realized that the reason people ask is just curiosity. They're so curious. And once you satisfy their curiosity, they're happy and content. And they're able to overcome that indifference that you have and look at you as the person that you are.
Ready? Perhaps their strongest connection was their mutual love for cars.
There's just so many things that we had in common that I hadn't found in a lot of the other women that I had been with. They like ballet, you like to go see monster trucks, and, you know, so you're going to the monster trucks alone.
What started out as a friendship slowly blossomed into something much deeper. And as it did, Rose began to wonder, could she achieve the ultimate expression of love by having a child?
Growing up, I was more of a tomboy, so I never really thought about that. But once I became a teenager, I wanted to, but I wasn't really sure. And I never really went to a doctor to find out, because as a girl, you don't want to find out that you can't have children.
But after dating Dave for more than 2 years, Rose got an answer to her question. She got pregnant. Immediately, she knew she needed a special kind of doctor.
The doctors that were here in Pueblo, I'm not going to say they weren't supporting for me, but they weren't real familiar with my condition.
After 2 doctors told her it was too dangerous for her to continue her pregnancy, Rose finally found one who agreed to see her through it, even though he had no prior experience with sacral agenesis. The doctor opted to monitor Rose carefully and see what happened.
He was just full of confidence, and, you know, every time I went there, I mean, it was all new to him. And he says, look, you know, the baby, it looks great. You're doing good, you know, keep up the good work.
Could Rose carry a child to term? Even Rose's determination to succeed could be undone by circumstances beyond her control.
The baby is developing at a fast rate, and what our main concern was room. And would the child have enough room to grow inside me? Would it not?
Next, can Rose beat the odds once again? Find out when we return on Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Rose Siggins managed to overcome all sorts of obstacles in her life. But now she faced her greatest challenge. Could she have a baby? At
the age age of 25, Rose learned her life was about to change forever. She was pregnant. But doctors warned that in trying to bring another life into the world, Rose's own life would be at risk.
What our main concern was room. And would the child have enough room to grow inside me? Would it not? Then we would run into the problem of my lungs not being able to expand, and then that would limit myself to breathing and even possibly stop.
But Rose wanted this baby. She and her doctor scheduled a cesarean delivery at 35 weeks, as soon as the baby's lungs were fully developed.
I knew that at 6 o'clock that evening I was going to be a mom. There was no backing out. There was no, I changed my mind. I was scared.
On January 6, 1999 at 6 p.m., Rose delivered a boy she named Luke. But did he have 10 perfect toes and 10 flawless fingers? 3 days went by before she felt strong enough to leave her bed and go see her baby for the first time.
We come down and he's laying in his little bed and he has all these little wires and tubes all over him, and I just looked at him and they picked him up and they put him in my arms, and I was overwhelmed with so much joy and happiness, and to look at him and see him cry and move his arms, and he was kicking his legs, and tears. It was just tears of joy. That I could possibly bring something that beautiful into the world. And he's perfect, and he was normal, and he's going to have a normal life.
Although the delivery was normal and her baby was fine, Rose soon found out there were still some obstacles in her way.
Okay. And every day it seems like it's a challenge with Luke. I'm not sure if it's every mom has those tasks set in front of her that she needs to overcome. I think a lot of them are easier. It's easy for a mom to go into the crib when their baby's crying and pick them up and walk them around. It's something that I can't do, but, Dave's able to do it for me.
Get that thing off my face, Dad. Off my face.
Luke, who's just turned a year old, is almost as tall as his mother, but Rose just sees that as an advantage, at least for now.
I think when he starts to crawl and he's able to be real mobile on the ground, we're both at the same height. So I don't think there'll be much he can get into that I won't know that he's getting into first.
But there was still one milestone left for this incredible woman. With their new baby in attendance, Rose and Dave tied the knot.
Good, eyes to me. Nice.
Always having a smile on your face somehow makes climbing over that one barrier a lot easier. But why not have a sense of humor in life? Life's not that bad. God dealt me a pretty good hand.
Okay. Now what is so unbelievable about an Etch-a-Sketch? Well, for me, nothing. But for George Velocich, everything.
Today is a big day for super sports fan George Velocich.
You have a pass? Oh, that'll work quite nicely. Come on in.
He's on his way to a Cleveland Indians game.
It's amazing.
But George's game begins a little differently than the average fan.
This is the first one I did of you guys. There you can see 7 years later, thousands of hours later.
That's not an easy thing to do. It's tougher than hitting a baseball.
21-year-old George has figured out the ultimate way to meet his sports idols by recreating their image on an old-fashioned Etch-a-Sketch drawing toy.
It's amazing that all the stuff that's happened to me because of doing artwork on an Etch-a-Sketch. I can't believe it, meeting Michael Jordan and Cal Ripken and Griffey and Sandy Alomar and Roberto Alomar and David Robinson and Garth Brooks, and President Clinton signed one. So it's such a big thrill for me.
How did this magnificent obsession begin? When George was just 9 years old on a family trip to Washington, D.C., sitting in the back of his parents' car, he realized he could do something other kids couldn't. He turned the knobs of his Etch-a-Sketch and produced a stunning snapshot of the U.S. Capitol building.
And that was really the point where everybody thought it was great. My parents, we pulled over to a gas station to take a picture of it, and everybody was, wow, that's great. We didn't want to lose it, we didn't want to erase it.
It didn't take long for Ohio Art, the manufacturers of Etch-a-Sketch, to find George. Whenever they put on contests for budding etch artists, George always won. Ohio Art couldn't believe it. They sent a representative to observe his technique, just to make sure he was the real deal.
When she came to the door to see my Etch-a-Sketches and see my work, I'm like, well, why would anybody want to watch me do this Etch-a-Sketch? You know, I couldn't figure that out, but she just wanted to make sure I was actually doing it. Hi, how you doing? I was wondering if you had any Etch-a-Sketches.
Here you go.
You got about 50 more?
50.
Nowadays, George gets his Etch-a-Sketch toys for free because the company says he's a one-of-a-kind pitchman. He inspires kids to find their artistic potential by playing with the original laptop.
Yeah, it's really hard.
The Etch-a-Sketch is filled with highly static aluminum powder, and a stylus scratches the image into the powder, making one long continuous line. So when the average person makes a mistake, it's time to start over. George says he doesn't have that problem.
Quite honestly, I don't make a mistake that often. I'm really careful not to.
The lines are supposed to go up and down, but through hand and eye coordination that one of his sports idols would envy, George is able to curve the lines and use the Etch-a-Sketch to sketch. It's a detailed process that takes 40 to 50 incredibly focused hours. Once George finishes, he preserves his masterpiece by removing the plastic back and dumping out the powder inside. Voila! Instant art. His original pieces sell for up to $3,000 each. And to think, it all started in the back seat of a car.
I never knew how good I was going to get on it and how many hours I was going to spend on it and where it would take me and all the neat people I've gotten to meet. I look at it and it's just amazing.
Preparations are almost ready. Soon 9 people will be hoisted aloft on this giant mobile, hanging only off hooks attached to the skin of their backs.
One major concern that we have is the skin actually tearing, the weight of their body actually on those pins themselves. It's possible that the skin could tear, you know, like buttons coming off, tearing through the tissue. And
for an event that defines unbelievable. In a few minutes, 9 people will attach to this rig to create a giant human mobile. Even more strange than what they are doing is how they are doing it. Rather than hanging from harnesses, the suspenders are going to surgically insert hooks and hang off the skin of their backs. Right now, the center of activity is this makeshift field hospital, where there is a backup of participants. Medical technicians on the crew can only work so fast and still maintain a sterile environment.
We're using a chlorxylenol soap to basically kill bacteria on the skin, and then is marking with gentian violet. Once the skin has been cleaned and marked, that's when you see the actual piercings taking place. And you'll notice that the piercers are all wearing masks. Also, we're double gloved. All the implements being used, obviously the needle and the modified hook design, are also prepackaged and sterilized as well.
There is an art to this, especially when the med techs have to find virgin skin to work with.
When you're dealing with people that have done a lot of suspensions, you have to make sure you don't want to give them really, really deep scar pockets. So I try not to hit the piercing spots that they've done before.
Stunt coordinator Barry Brazil confirms that it's a radical departure from Hollywood techniques.
Everything we would do would be fake, would be created, would be made believe. There would be nothing actually happening. If we were to fly someone, it would be with an elaborate harness system, especially if they were actually shown skin, and then it would be all to be done in cuts where you'd stop the film, restart the film.
The only woman in the group, Essie, is about to be pierced.
It's interesting having cold metal going right underneath your skin. It's not something you can feel all the time. Especially this gauge. This is a pretty large gauge. It's like, I think 8 gauge needles, which are sizable.
Mild shock is common. Having cold extremities, a little low blood pressure, all these things are normal. That's nothing to be worried about.
The ringleader of the suspension is Alan Faulkner. His story and the development of the 9-person suspension began far from here, in the heart of the Lone Star State.
Oh, right on. I own a piercing studio in Dallas by the name of Obscurities, and most of the members work with or actually work for the studio.
The piercing studio is a fertile talent pool for pulling off human suspensions. It also gives the team ample time to perfect procedures and protocols.
One of the biggest difficulties is that this is a very, very stressful art. We're having to work with bodily fluids. We're having to work in, very dangerous, dynamic situations. You're only going to go into a situation if you really trust someone and really care about them. So we have a real strong family unity.
Welcome to set up.
Body suspensions started really for me from a book by the name of Modern Primitives, which is like the body piercing Bible in a lot of ways. And I saw a picture of someone hanging from hooks, and I thought it was frightening and impossible, and had to give it a try.
Alan's eclectic background played into his fascination with the primitive arts.
I'm an engineer by education. I am a sport climber, and I'm a body piercer by profession. And the mixture of the three and liking to produce performance art, it all just kind of came together.
The buildup was over a period of years with different and ever more complex suspensions, but the payoff for Alan and the group will be the giant 9-human suspension rig under construction.
This rig is a giant engineering nightmare. When you get up to the top, we're balancing 3,000 pounds off of one person. 1 inch one way or the other is going to make a huge difference. The moment the entire structure comes down and touches the ground again will be the happiest point I've had in a long time.
When the team finally arrives on location, they're met by a 100-foot crane. And as the time for the suspension event closes, the entire team convenes.
We're going to lift it very slowly and attach people as each beam comes up to level. As soon as it's high enough, clip one person in. We'll hold it down until the next person is clipped in. And as you raise it, people will, in succession, come off the ground.
This is the most dangerous moment in the test. If the balance of the rig is off by only 3% at the top, it could set off a chain reaction that could severely injure the participants. Finally, the last people are hoisted aloft. All seems to be going well, and they are one step closer to the largest suspension in history. The next step will be exchanging the safety harnesses that they are now using for stainless steel hooks in their backs.
Somebody could go into shock, something in the rig could break, somebody could spontaneously have a heart attack, aneurysm. I mean, the world is full of opportunities for things to go wrong. Hopefully none of them will happen.
0 hour. The ground crew is ready. The participants are all released from the triage ward wearing their steel hooks and harnesses.
We did a type of tug of war where we attach our rigs to each other and just lean back and we put our feet together and let the body weight pulse so that there's tension on the hooks. And then, 4, 5, 6 people we had at some point. It's a bonding thing. It's very natural for us to all feel very close, especially at that moment.
There's a lot of just anticipation, a lot of anxiety, knowing that something can go wrong. At the same time, realizing, wow, we actually did this thing.
Next, an amazing suspension of disbelief when we return on Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Okay, now it's time to hang these people by hooks from their back. At Ripley's, 9 people are about to create a human mobile. They built a steel I-beam support system and attached it to a 100-foot crane. They had hooks surgically placed into their backs and then attached the hooks to special harnesses. Finally, slowly, the crane begins to lift the team into the air.
You know what? I'm really happy to almost be off the ground. It's been a long day. I'm third person up, and I see Oliver giving the up sign to the crane gentleman, and my feet are coming off the ground.
The moment that the first person is leaving the ground is probably the most frightening point for me, because then I know I'm stuck now. I have to do it.
This is the worst position right here. Having your toes just barely touching the ground, it's horrible.
Once the rig actually lifts you into the air, it starts to hurt. It's just kind of your whole back is hot and sore.
Those first moments are, you feel the tension, but it's just a matter of directing that pain element into something that you can deal with, but then you start to feel the relaxation aspect of it. As I climbed to the top, I feel myself getting a little bit woozy, a little bit dizzy, and not from the height, because heights are not an issue for me, but while I'm hanging there, it's definitely a little bit like touch and go as far as like, am I really completely there?
Essie is passed out from shock, which, left untreated, could progress to irreversible coma or worse. If she does not snap out of it soon, the entire rig will have to come down fast. A failed suspension, but her only chance for survival.
Essie! Essie, girl, come on! Essie! Come on, wake up!
Finally, the voices of her comrades bring her around. She swings her legs to get her blood circulating.
Feels really nice. Now we're moving. Got some airflow. Got some blood flowing. All very important and not passing out. As long as I'm moving, I'm feeling very comfortable and very alive and very angelic in the sense of what you picture of an angel floating, an angel above the earth. That's what it feels like.
Human skin can only take a strain of 93 pounds of tearing force. With 4 hooks in each back, it would appear that they have a margin of safety. Still, it seems impossible that the suspenders can put aside the severe pain of the ordeal and actually enjoy their 3-dimensional playground. Alan maintains that in the world of performance art, this is a great canvas.
Grab on my leg and pull me over. There are deeper meanings to it, to me and to other members of the group, but what we try to portray to the crowd is simply an art form. A very extreme art form, granted, but we are not trying to be freaks. We're not religious zealots. We really are artists.
Now this feels right. This just feels so right.
Hey guys, go ahead and line them up again. Find the next time.
Coming down felt really nice, and again, it's still exciting. You know, you're coming down, and then your feet are back on the ground.